Good evening and welcome to Real Talk with Tamara. As you guys come into the room, please hit the like button. Also, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. I wanted to come on for just a little bit to talk about the Tim Norman of Sweetie Pie's case. Of course, he was found guilty today. Um, of course, I just from me following the case, I did not vlog on it a whole lot. But just for me following the case, I definitely figured that he would be found guilty. Um, I figured he would be found guilty just based on the evidence that they had, based on the testimony of the other people. Okay, like Terica, who was from Memphis, Tennessee, the shooter that he recruited to take Andre out, and the insurance guy. I think everybody that was involved kind of turned state's evidence, I guess, to try to help themselves. They kind of told their part in it. And the common denominator, the person who brought all of this together was Tim. And I think one of the other reasons so many people was kind of zoned in on this case is because Andre Montgomery was Tim Norman's nephew, and I know a lot of you all were familiar with Sweetie Pie's on TV, and I was a really big fan of the show too. And I remember when Andre was on there, he seemed like a really sweet child, just sweet, just normal like any young person. And I remember in looking at that show, I saw that Andre was Miss Robbie's grandson from her oldest son, who was actually killed, unfortunately. And the mere fact that that was Tim's only brother and Andre was his father's only child, I do believe that he would take his own brother's child out, his nephew, his blood nephew. His brother had met the same demise years before. I don't know the circumstances surrounding that. I just know that he was murdered because I heard Miss Robbie talk about it. And the mere fact that years later, Andre, who had moved from Texas to St. Louis for a better life, had then came onto the show. And I'm gonna just say this: I remember when Andre was on the show, I could see that I saw how Tim treated him. He never really treated him right to me. Tim seemed to have had anger issues. You know, um, I kind of sat back and watched a lot of that. Just in how things went with the him getting the insurance, when there was rumors about Andre. They allegedly blamed Andre for breaking into Miss Robbie's house, and supposedly that's the reason why Tim had it out for him. And I think Andre had told, in listening to some of what came out in court, Andre had told Miss Robbie that Tim was after him. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, Andre had told the police when he was questioned about the burglary and the money was stolen from his grandmother's house that they needed to look at his uncle, which was Tim. Okay. And if you ask me, I feel like I always believed that it was Tim. Okay. Because I remember the episode with Miss Robbie. I think deep down inside, Miss Robbie knew it was Tim. I gotta be honest. I think deep down inside, she knew it was her son that did that. Because I remember in the episode, Miss Robbie was like, well, whoever it was, they stole, I believe, about 250 grand. And they also stole some paperwork. Okay, some paperwork with her business things on it. During that time, I think Miss Robbie and Tim was at odds with each other. Remember, she was suing him because he was opening up franchises in Sweetie Pies, and he was probably headed towards sending her into bankruptcy. And so she had to sue him, and that kind of caused the wedge between them. And I remember when the burglary happened, and Tim made this comment, and it's just something that kind of clicked in. Tim seemed like a narcissist that's just kind of has disassociated himself with human feelings. Okay. And I remember when he was kind of sort of joking to Miss Robbie and saying, that means I need to take your insurance policy up. You know, I kind of believe, and there's no proof of it, I kind of believe that before he did this to Andre, I really in my heart believe that he had thought about his mom. I feel like with him opening up so many franchises, he had gotten himself into debt. He had probably gone and got, money from loan sharks. I mean, I just feel like he was in debt. He wanted to keep up a lifestyle, and it's a damn shame that he, felt like his nephew, his brother's son's life meant nothing. A child that had came to St. Louis in hopes of changing his life. And he was really a fan favorite. You look at Tim, I don't mean no harm. There was nothing attractive about him. Okay. But Andre was younger. He was he had the football type body build. He was a nice looking young man, pretty brown eyes. He was just a handsome young man with a lot of life ahead of him. And it's a damn shame that his uncle sniffed that out of him. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to, let me see. I want to play, let me see. Y'all know I'm just kind of, so, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share let's see. This right here is Tim Norman testifying in his own case, and this was a few days ago. I'm just going to kind of take you guys back a little bit.
Accused of plotting to have his nephew murdered for an insurance payout took the stand to testify on his own behalf.
We have been watching the trial of Tim Norman, a co-owner of Sweetie Pie's soul food restaurants. Fox 2's Kelly Hoskins has been in the courtroom all day and has the developments.
It's day 6 of the murder trial, and Tim Norman took to the stand to testify. He's been accused of being the mastermind behind the murder for hire trial to kill his nephew. Norman and his family became known for the reality TV show Welcome to Sweetie Pies on the Oprah Winfrey Network for several seasons. On Tuesday, Norman was on the stand for hours during his testimony. Defense attorneys asked Norman if he had anything to do with the murder for his 21-year-old nephew, Andre Montgomery Jr. Norman answered, "No, sir." He testified that his nephew was present when the insurance application was being filled out by his insurance agent. He says he doesn't recognize the handwriting on the application. The defense attorney asked about one of the insurance agent's partners, and Norman says he does not know who that is, implying that they were the ones who filled out the forms, and Tim was kept in the dark. He also denied ever relaying a message to the alleged shooter to kill his nephew. Norman said Andre was his brother's kid, and his brother died when Andre was a baby. So Norman said he decided to step in to be a role model and a father figure. Norman said he paid for Montgomery to go to music school, paid for the apartment, and gave him weekly allowance, providing groceries and clothes. Norman says that when he learned that his nephew stopped going to school and showing up for work, that's when Norman said Montgomery got kicked out of his apartment, and he decided to cut him off financially. The defense also showed pictures of Montgomery posing with guns, and Norman said he was concerned about Montgomery's lifestyle, and Norman said it was suggested he should get a life insurance policy. The defense attempted to imply Andre was involved in gang activity, but the U.S. Attorney's Office successfully overrode it. Prosecutors will now have their turn to cross-examine Norman tomorrow morning. Reporting in downtown St. Louis, I'm Kelly Hoskins.
Okay, now, I've heard that was a lie, that he did not actually pay for Andre's school to go to school or anything like that. Actually, his grandmother, Miss Robbie, paid for all of those things. I guess they thought that they would make it sound better by saying that Tim did it. It leads me to believe, because in court, when there was messages read from Andre's phone where he was texting back and forth with his grandmother, the way that they got him to St. Louis is she wanted for him to take a lie detector test proving that he did not break into her home. I don't know why that was so important, because a lie detector test proves nothing. I'm sure that was Tim in her ear saying, Mama, make him take a lie detector test to get him here, because Andre had moved back home to Texas. According to reports, he had moved back home to Texas simply because of how that side of the family, Tim had, put in his ear and got them to believe that he had broken into Miss Robbie's house, his own grandmother. Andre loved his grandmother. And then the text messages, Miss Robbie was going back and forth with Andre about, you need to come back to St. Louis to take a lie detector test to prove that you did not break into my house. And I'm sure Tim masterminded that so that Miss Robbie could get Andre back to St. Louis so that he could line up his own nephew, okay? Not only that, but he got YL, and I'm sure YL is going to get, I think he's the Iranian that he actually went to they falsified the insurance paperwork, okay? And he was the one that he claims that Andre was there with them when they filled out the paperwork, but Andre had no idea that his uncle was lining him up. Now, Terica Ellis was Tim Norman's girlfriend. She was a stripper that he had met, and she actually testified. Terica, I'm just going to read a little bit of what Terica said, and I'm just kind of giving a recap of the situation, just a small recap. Ellis says that night she recalled Norman saying that his nephew had stolen money and jewelry from his mother's house and he wanted to get her belongings back. Norman then reportedly showed her a photo of his nephew, later identified as Andre Montgomery. Ellis says she knew him and exchanged phone numbers. Per Ellis' testimony, Norman then offered her $10,000 to help him find Montgomery. He gave her the money in a bag and the two left the hotel. According to Ellis's testimony, she started communicating with Montgomery before she left the hotel. According to Ellis's testimony, she started communicating with Montgomery before she left the hotel and was given a prepaid phone to further communicate with him. Ellis then switched to texting Montgomery on a prepaid phone purchased at a Walgreens and falsely told him her other one was broken as part of Norman's request. Ellis says she met Montgomery early in the afternoon at a La Quinta Inn. Montgomery informed her he was on a photo shoot, then asked her to buy him a new outfit, but had not offered any money. Ellis says she went to the Galleria to purchase some clothes and met Montgomery again around 7 p.m. at the address on Natural Bridge. She had also been in communication with Norman about the meetup. Prior to then, Norman also asked Ellis to stay in touch with his nephew on the prepaid phone. That contact, formerly known as Travail Hill, that is the killer, the person who actually pulled the trigger and killed Andre. Travail Hill, and also convicted in the case. Later, Travail traveled to the address after talking to Ellis and instructed Ellis to move via text after Montgomery left the car after a brief conversation between the two. In that conversation, Ellis says there was no indication Hill had a gun or would harm Andre. Ellis says she sped off after Montgomery left the car. Within seconds, she heard shots and contacted Norman about the situation, who told her, "Don't worry about it, go home," over a call. Norman then informed Ellis to drive away from St. Louis, delete her Instagram account, and get rid of the burner phone. Later in March, Ellis was in contact with Norman and informed to stay out of St. Louis since she was wanted for questioning in Montgomery's death. Travail Hill, the accused triggerman, offered testimony after Ellis. Hill was indicted in November 2020 on one count of murder for hire and one count of conspiracy to commit murder for hire. He pleaded guilty in June 2022, and he'll be sentenced in September 20th. Okay, so all of these people kind of testified about, Tim. I think Tim only paid Travail Hill only $5,000. He only got like $5,000. Terica said $10,000. I think she only ended up getting about $9,000. She tried to say she did not know that they was lining him up. I think in some more testimony, she had said that she thought that he was just going to beat him up or something like that. She did not know that they was getting ready to take him out, but she was still the setup person. And then looking at some of her social media, she, even though she heard those gunshots, she traveled to LA. Tim started, taking care of her. She went and deposited that money into her account, and she had no issues. Okay. She seemed happy on her social medias, even after she found out, because this was a public show and this was played out on the show, that Andre Montgomery was taken out. She knew exactly who he was. So she knew what her job was, and that was to be the setup girl. So there's no way that I would ever believe that she did not know that Andre was taken out. She did not know that. Tim Norman, they said, then went on to purchase, to kind of take care of her. And I guess that was just hush money because they were sleeping around. Flew her family out to LA with him when they had the sweetie pies out in LA. So he just kind of kept, tricking off on her, and she knew exactly, they had a sexual relationship before. So she knew exactly what was going on. So, I think she feels like she's going to get off easy because she has 2 small children, and she is from Memphis, Tennessee. She was saying that, unfortunately, one of her children has an ailment, has an illness, that's unfortunate, but that's something she should have thought about, before she was stripping, there was more ways to get money than to help someone that you're messing around with set up his nephew. And she did not seem affected by it because they have video of her being on social media the very next day. And she seemed happy drinking wine. She went from, rags to what she called riches, I guess, and $10,000 is not enough money to line up anybody. Of course, there could never be enough money because you cannot get a life back. Okay. So I want to show you all where Tim was. He was actually, let me see.
Deliberation.
He was actually found guilty. Okay. And I want to show you all that. Because I just kind of took you all back a little bit, if I could. Okay, here it is. Tim's mother, Miss Robbie, stood behind him to the end. She said she did not believe that he helped to line her grandson up. As a mother, I guess it would be hard for her to digest that her son took out her other son's child, which is her grandchild.
But rather, St. Louis reality TV star found guilty in a murder for hire plot. Tim Norman was known for appearing on the reality series Welcome to Sweetie Pies. Today, a jury said Norman planned his nephew's murder and tried to cash in on his life insurance. News 4's Susan Alcori joins us live after following the very latest in this case.
Yeah, and Paige, prosecutors called it a crime that was motivated by greed, and that was enough for a federal jury. They spent almost 17 hours deliberating.
Before they came out earlier this afternoon and said Tim Norman is guilty on all charges. And prosecutors said Norman took out a life insurance policy on his 21-year-old nephew, Andre Montgomery. That policy was worth $450,000. During the trial, an exotic dancer took the stand and testified that Norman paid her to follow his nephew. The accused shooter also testified that Norman paid him to pull the trigger. Both of them pled guilty to their parts in the crime. Meanwhile, Norman's lawyer called all of that a made-up theory.
He then used a paramour to locate Mr. Montgomery and a co-defendant to fatally shoot and kill him. And within days of his nephew's murder, Mr. Norman started the process of getting the insurance company to pay the claim.
Tim, as I was just saying, is extremely strong and optimistic. I know it hurts to the bottom of his soul, but I think he remains optimistic like we do that we can undo this by way of post-trial motions and/or on appeal.
And we know Norman's sentencing is scheduled for December. He's facing up to life in prison. And as you heard Norman's lawyer just say, they're not done with this case, and they tell me that they do plan on appealing this.
Already, we know that you'll be following it through that process.
Of course.
Okay, you guys, we see that he was found guilty, and which I believe that he very well is guilty. I wanted to talk about right before Tim was actually indicted. I got a call from a friend of mine named Byron, who had said to me, and I had no idea who the person was, that he had a friend and her brother, okay, was killed, and his mother was looking to hire a private investigator. And I remember him saying, I was in meditation, and the first person that came to mind was you. And I was like, okay, I had no idea who the people were. And I know he's back and forth from Memphis to Texas, okay, as far as his parents, okay. And so he said, is it okay for me to give her your number, Queen? I said, absolutely. So I remember about 3 nights after that, I was sitting on my couch at about 11:30 at night, and I saw a number come up on my phone from Lubbock, Texas. And I remember saying, now, who could be calling me this late? I almost did not answer the phone. When I answered the phone, of course, there was a lady, just as sweet as she could be, on the other end. And she told me, she said, Byron gave me your number. Is your name Tamara? I said, yes. And she said, well, I was interested in hiring a private investigator about my son's death. And she said, Byron told me that you could possibly help me. I said, of course. And I said, I almost didn't answer the phone because I don't know anybody from Lubbock, Texas. And she went into talking about her son had been killed, and he was killed in St. Louis. And when she told me, she said, well, I want to tell you the whole story if you got time. I said, sure. She said, my son was a part of a TV show. And when she said that, Byron had never told me. When she said that, it just snapped. Oh my God, I wonder if that was the young man from Sweetie Pies. But I didn't say anything. She said, my son's name was Andre Montgomery. He was on the TV show Sweetie Pies. And she said he was killed a few years back. And, the murder is still unsolved. And I want to hire a private investigator to see what has happened to my son. Oh my God, I get emotional when I think about it. And I remember, the lady had so much grace. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours, and I can't even tell you verbatim everything because we talked about a plethora of things. But I do know one thing. When I said to her, well, if I take the case, with me traveling back and forth to St. Louis, and she was adamant about Missouri. She was adamant about that she did not want to hire an investigator from out of Missouri, from out of St. Louis. And I told her, she said to me that the first thing I said to her, and that's why I know that God was in it. I said, well, if I take it, I would have to, go and first I would need to interview Miss Robbie and Tim. And she said, She never told me at that point that she thought that they was involved. She never said that. She never did. She was really a soft-spoken mother. She just kind of, you could tell that she was still grieving about her son, and she was adamant about she wanted justice for her son, and she never told me that she believed that they were involved. And at that time, my caseload was I had such an overload of cases. I remember her texting me 2 times after that and saying, did you come up with a price? Because she was adamant that she wanted to hire me. She texted me twice. Did you come up with a price? And I never got back with her on that, you know. And then I remember sitting at home, being on the internet about a month later, and I saw that they were indicted. Okay. I believe it was Tim that was indicted first. So God was actually, the FBI had gotten him, you know. So God was actually working that out as we had spoken. And it was just meant for me, because I would have gone down there, you know, not, and I'm sure though, if she felt once she hired me, she probably would have told me everything, and I would have known to, you know, we would have known, you know, who to be really meticulous about. But the FBI was already working on that, and I was very happy for her. You know, I was very happy for that family. What I want to do is, before I get off of here, because I'm not going to stay on here too long, because I'm just happy that she has gotten justice. She has not said a whole lot. I'm happy that I got the opportunity to speak with her, and she has a very sweet spirit. And I'm so happy that that lady has gotten justice for her son. It's a shame before God what they did to her child. She sent her child down there for a better life, and his own uncle, okay? His own uncle lined him up. And I think that's sad. Okay, I think that's so sad. Hold on one second. This is his sister.
This is justice. You know, I'm glad they put that monster behind bars for life.
Yes.
As a reality TV personality heads to court, a guilty verdict today. He's found guilty of arranging the murder of his own nephew. The jury deliberated about 17 hours before reaching a verdict in the murder for hire case against James Norman, a star of Welcome to Sweetie Pies. Our Justina Cornell has followed the trial from the very beginning. She's live outside of the federal courthouse in downtown St. Louis. Justina.
Yeah, Brent, so just That's 5 minutes ago, Andre Montgomery Jr.'s family arrived here at the federal courthouse, and they're about to do a balloon release in honor of Andre Montgomery Jr. Now, earlier today, we actually heard reactions from both sides. Norman's family was upset, and Montgomery's family was cheering outside and celebrating. It was after the verdict, the defense attorney spoke to us saying they were disappointed and thought Norman's lengthy testimony was convincing. As for the prosecutors, they say the evidence is overwhelming, and Norman's plan was simple, saying Norman plotted to kill his nephew to get $450,000 in life insurance money. A few hours ago, we spoke to both sides on camera.
Despite the verdict, has a lot of optimism that we're going to overcome this and ultimately prevail.
He ruined multiple lives, not just ours, but multiple lives. And, you know, it's some peace, but not like my brother's not going to come back.
Now, as far as what's next, we're told Tim.
And let me just say this. Andre's family knew from the very start. And his sisters was very vocal about it. And I didn't know it at the time when his mom called me looking for an investigator. But his sister and them have been very vocal on social media about their feelings about Tim taking out Andre. And I did not know that. But they was very vocal. They knew from the start. And I can only speculate that they felt like something was wrong because Andre was vocal about Tim was trying to do something to him. That's why I know Miss Robbie asked no. Lord forgive me, because I don't want to be disrespectful to the elder. But I know Miss Robbie is hard to digest, but Miss Robbie knows that something is not right. I looked at Miss Robbie when she was crying, when she was talking about Andre's death, and you know, she said, I know somebody knows something. It had to be someone that he knew. Andre had told Miss Robbie he felt like his uncle was trying to line him up, and Miss Robbie chose to ignore that. And I don't think, you know, I can't be completely mad at Miss Robbie because Miss Robbie is of age. She's in her 80s. I think it's easier for her to believe that he did not do it because I don't think that she could take digesting that. It could probably take her on out of here, okay? So some people have to block out stuff, and it's easier for them to believe another thing for them to have their sanity. I want to believe that that's just what that is, okay? And I know that he is her child, but Andre is her grandchild. So I think she's just in denial because she's in survival mode. Because if she started to accept what was real, what was reality, it could possibly give her a heart attack. Okay. But anyways, I want to say thank God for justice for Andre Montgomery. I have been following this. There was a plethora of people already, doing shows on this, and I had spoken to my friend Byron, and his mother was very soft-spoken when I spoke with her that night. Okay. We had talked about some more stuff. I'm not going to get into everything that we had talked about, but we talked for almost 2 hours. So we talked about a lot of stuff, to the point that I know she, like I said, she texted me twice after that because she was adamant about she wanted to hire me. But God knew that the FBI already had that case tied up. I don't know if she knew that at the time. I think she had started to get anxious because I know what the FBI does is they go up underground. But God was already working that out when she had contacted me. And when I saw that a month later, I was like, thank you, Jesus. But I was just in shock that Tim was the person that was indicted. So thank God for justice for Andre. It was a long time coming for his mother. I want to send my love and my blessings to her and her family. And, hey, God is good. All right, you guys. I want you guys to like, share, and subscribe, okay? Please hit the like button. If you would like to donate to the channel, you could definitely do that via Cash App. Thank you, guys. I'll talk with you later.